Hello, my name is Joshua Keefe, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today we're going to be looking at a Thankful Thursday, and we're going to be looking at being thankful for freedom. In John chapter 8, verses 31 through 32, Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, "If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Jesus here talks about this concept of freedom, and that's something that we actually talk about quite a bit in our culture. However, it's interesting because the audience, as soon as he talks about this, misunderstands what it is that he's referring to. And they actually claim, "How can you set us free? We've not been slaves to anybody." And Jesus has to correct them. He has to say that that is not true at all. Even if you think that you are free, you need to understand that you have become a slave to sin because you have fallen to sin. And so Jesus is offering them the opportunity to have that freedom, to be able to remove themselves from sin. So let's define a little bit more about what this freedom does for us. First of all, we see that we have freedom from the wages of sin. Now, if you notice, Paul in Romans chapter 6, verse 23 says, "The wages of sin is death." And he's actually talking again about this concept of slavery there. And what he's trying to emphasize is, what do you get out of the master that you're serving? And when you are a slave, then that means that you have to get whatever it is that your master decides to give you. Well, if you choose to be a slave to sin, the wages of sin is death. And by this we know that he means eternal death, that he means that you are separated from God, and that if you decide not to get freedom from that, you will remain separated from God for all eternity. And so we should be thankful that Jesus has come and he has brought us truth so that we can have freedom from the consequences of our sin. But we should not make the mistake of thinking that Jesus only wanted to free us from the consequences of sin. He, in fact, wanted us to free ourselves from living in sin. One of the things that people find is that sin entraps them. If you think about what Jesus says in the parable of the sower, the one who is caught by the thorns, the things of the life, squeeze the life out of him. And I think that's a very appropriate analogy for the concept of sin. That sin gets its claws within us and it overtakes our life. And sometimes we'll get stuck and we just have no idea how to get out of it, how to change what it is we're doing. We can see that the choices that we're making, the lifestyle that we're living, it's destructive. It's hurting those that we love the most. And yet we don't know what to do about it. Jesus came to give us freedom, not just from the consequences of sin, but also from living in sin. He gave us his word so that we could know how it is that we are to act, what we should be doing, how we can get ourselves out of the muck and the mire of a sinful life, and instead live one that has the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. The type of things that we want in our lives. Jesus tells us how. He frees us not just from the consequences, which is enough to be grateful for, but he frees us from also living in sin. He tells us how we can get out from underneath the weight of it. Praise be to God that he is willing to give us such wonderful blessings. I hope this lesson helps you in your walk in his kingdom.